Hello and welcome to this railway domain session as part of the buildingSMART International Summit Marrakesh 2024. Thank you for joining us today. My name is John Proctor and I am your moderator. Details of today's session are on the screen. This is Railway Domain Session 2. We will be hearing from Franz Josef and Stefan, who will be hopefully proposing how can the railway industry help to maintain IFC standards. And we hope to hear from everybody in the room and online in that debate. The session is scheduled to last between 60 and 90 minutes, including time for questions at the end. And it's been recorded and will be made available in the replay section as soon as possible. Before I hand over to our speakers, I'd like to remind you this is a hybrid event. For online attendees, your microphones will remain muted for the duration of the session. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please use the comments box and I will prompt you to do so. For the attendees in the room, thank you for joining us. Please keep background noise to a minimum. But if you do want to make a comment or ask a question, that will be most welcome and we have microphones available. Please raise your hand. I also need to bring to your attention the following information. buildingSMART is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted and the process for their adoption is transparent, and standards that are developed do not favour any particular provider but are open, non-binding and accessible to all. Please take note of our antitrust code of conduct. With that, I'm going to hand over to Stefan. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And welcome everybody to today's Railway Domain Session number 2. I might shatter your experiences because this session is really towards outlining how we can gather feedback from our users. So, as you all know, IFC 4.3 is an ISO standard by now, and there are very promising results in the implementation of software. As you all might be aware of, there is a new BSI process coming up, and we had that discussion yesterday in the stations project, that if there are any entities that will be amended or extended in the IFC schema, that is under the regulation of BSI. And that's fine. That's not what we are going to talk about today. Today's perspective really is that we as a domain or as a railway industry have to know what our customers and our users and our peers struggle with when using a new standard. So what I would like you to do in this afternoon is to discuss with us, to create with us, and to get your inputs, get your feedbacks, get all the feedbacks that you have from the market, so that we can have a more reliable and more user-centric focus on what we are going to develop as a railway domain in the future. Some of you, especially the ones that are in the steering committee, also know that we are working on a railway domain roadmap for the future. The results that we will gather in these sessions will be very valuable also for the development of this roadmap in the future. Having said that, over to you, Franz Josef.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I also want to welcome you to this session of the Railway Room, and I hope you enjoy this summit as much as I do. It will take several days, I guess, to go through all my notes, which I took already, to work this up and to investigate more. It's really a great summit. Okay, my name is Franz Josef Bär. I'm working at the asset management department of the infrastructure of the Austrian Federal Railways, the so-called ÖBB, as a project portfolio manager for digitalization. And of course, I'm a member of the team, of ÖBB's team, driving this PIM initiative since the beginning, which was 2017. I'm sure you all heard about this new or revised BSI process to deal with projects, which is currently under development, or at least it's not published yet. We just checked it before. now you may ask yourself, why is this guy from the railway domain explaining some of the PSI process? And yeah, I must agree, you are right. It's not my role to explain the process here, but during the preparation for this session, Richard sent us an excerpt, a piece of this process where it should get clearer what's the role of a domain in the future then. And yeah, in this document they are talking about these 4 business needs, which you can read on the slide, and with some options for stakeholders. They will come if John clicks the next and it's animated. But yeah, there are some possibilities, and it's described, and I'm sure it will be published soon. Okay, the reason why we want to bring this up in this session is because it's relevant for the process for dealing with user and stakeholder feedback. You will see this later, which we want to define together with you today. So this means that we plan to do a few interactive parts in this session, so you cannot just lean back and as John proposed that we have the solution ready or already the process, we will present the process. This is not the case. Yeah, just one remark, we won't use Mentimeter. So it will no Mentimeter clicking. So we really try to do this interactively with you together, and then we will, so that we can implement it in our railway domain. And use this. Thank you.
So next slide, please. These are the possibilities that Franz Josef has mentioned that we as an industry have to develop this. And to introduce the next thing is, if you could please go to the next slide. I know this is a simplified process, but the very question that we have is, if we have all these standards in place here, and we have a user that does his requirements, and just at the moment, I know the use case management is very, very valuable, but forget about the use case management at the moment. We have a requirement, we have a product, we have some checks and deliver. How do we get from this delivery of a certain result in the project back to the requirements, and how do we improve these requirements? Especially, how do we as a domain have an overview, and how do we as an industry have an approach to do these beneficial iterations for the industry? Next slide, please. So I wanted to ask you, as a first, if you have think about your daily life with projects, or with your software clients, or with your peers, what are challenges or main challenges when using Open BIM standards that you encounter? Or are there none? I would like to go back to the first day. Then we had, and Jugal said there were 4 people saying that implementing BIM was a very easy task. You are more than 4 people, so there should be some difficulties.
Hi. What you see is either the users having trouble understanding the how to use it or to implement it, but also the client is not asking for it, or the client has their own OTL, which is quite difficult to then implement. So that's the things I run into.
Thank you.
Some problems to mention. I'm Tarmo from Finland. I'm representing Lion organization. Some problems is the guidance. Guidance is very different. Also, we have a traditional process and the BIM process. Education of people, there are different educational level of people. There is resistance for changing to the BIM, very scary BIM process. So those are a few ones.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on that? Especially if we want to go from a, let's say, process or politics or regulations level to a user level on people that already work with BIM or already work with open BIM standards. Anything you want to mention? Yes.
Peter Axelsson, Sweden. I think that one of the problems we have is to formulate the requirements in a good way on the client side, because up till now, when you have a traditional way of working, there's a lot of requirements that you don't have to write out explicitly, because it's somehow in the common knowledge that we have in the industry. So I think we need to, the client need to be better to formulate the requirements in a good way, and of course make it machine readable in the end, so that it's easier for the designer to pick up the requirements and understand them. I think that's one of the main things as I see it.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Just a question back then, but if your client doesn't have any requirements and doesn't use it, and isn't open to work with open standards, how would you address it then? So it's the chicken and the egg, of course, but
yeah, of course, it depends what kind of organization. But I think if you look at the main rail and road organizations, they are government organizations, and in most countries, I would say there is a direction of going to open standards, not explicitly open BIM, but to open standards and more data management. So I think it's no, I don't. I think in most cases that's not the problem. But then, of course, they are not using it at this time, but they are going in that direction, I think.
yeah. So, for example, the Dutch railway system is semi-privatized. And also open, but they have developed their own OTL, for example. So that's different than the where Europe is going at this point. So it's quite difficult then, because they have their own open standards and they're not using other open standard, or they have their own standard, which they developed their library for, and they don't have or don't adapt or not adapting an open standard in this case.
Well, I guess you have problems everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure that you need to have explicitly the same OTL. That it depends on what you put in that, what you actually mean by that. But I mean, you can still use open, like IFC, even if you have another OTL. I guess, I don't know, yeah, but no, yeah, of course there are difficulties, but I think in most countries, and also for the European regulations, is saying that the government shall go in a direction of open standards on a very high top general level. So I mean, you can always point at that. Then if they follow it or not, that's another question. But from the top level, we have this direction of going to open. When you invest in new systems on a government level, you should try to follow those, I wouldn't say regulations, but it's in the new Interoperability Act. So yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for all the comments. I think these are a very good example on what we are discussing here at BSI in those sessions, in the summits, and also in the working groups. I think for our perspective as regulators, as standardization bodies, as public clients, as industry experts, one of the main things that we face is the issues on how to describe requirements, how to put on regulations, how are we going to harmonize the further development of Open BIM on a national or international level, and how are we going to do that so that we have a unity as an industry going forward. If you could put on the next slide, please. For our users, or for the clients, the reality is a bit different, if I may say so. And I was just thinking about, okay, if I was a user, and I'm not a BIM modeler, I'm head of BIM standards at the Swiss Federal Railways, so I barely see a model all day. What are the experience that our users have, especially when interacting with us as BSI or with other industry experts? For example, there is a gentleman, one possibility is that you could post something on LinkedIn. And there is a gentleman who had a problem with IFC building story elevation, that the marked fields in his IFC turned out to be wrong in geometrical export. And all the comments were just guessings about if the software is on a works on metric units, or if it does on non-metric units, if that could be a problem or not. But I don't think that that gentleman was satisfied. And other than that, he also translated his message with DeepL and posted it in. So it's not his first language. So somehow he might have had some troubles. Another possibility is you post something about IFC 4.3 and how it does not work, and you have someone that replies that IFC 4.3 is a completely, no need to apologize, it really is unsustainable and way too difficult to implement in a reliable way. That's someone that works at BSI. This needs to change. Time for IFC 5 to take a big leap. Like, we as a railway domain and railway community have developed IFC 4.3 with a lot of work, a lot of effort, and a lot of money. And it's not something that I want to, as a stakeholder, see as a message to the outside world. Then there are other possibilities. We have spoken about this yesterday. You could, for example, say, hey, I need a turtle release of IFC 4.3. And the turtle release, it's not really legible, but it's from 11th February this year. Hey, we have a standard which is on. Could you please do a turtle release so I can use it for whatever reason I need it? This gentleman, the feedback he got was 1 like on GitHub. Nothing else. I asked Chi, who I'm very happy to work with at SBB, if there is a turtle release. I had a turtle of IFC 4.3 in 12 minutes or so. So it's obviously really easy to make. I'm not a technical guy, so I cannot tell it. Or another story. 2 years ago, user Camontelano posted on the BSI forum that he's assisting a colleague on a master thesis, and said he wants to know how IFC alignment works. He has a good BIM experience, that he's a technical guy, that he's not afraid of technical questions and of having a good dialogue with the community, and asked if anyone has time for 30 minutes. He did get some replies that may or may not work. All the replies that he got were and that's correct, with a comment that the documents are not finished yet and that they are still undergoing some work. Now, 2 years later, now that IFC 4.3 is official, I'd like to bring live to this topic again. So you might think that this master thesis has long been written before, and he still has some interest in knowing how IFC alignment works. Where can I find how IFC alignment works? How can I place geometry along axis? How do I create the 3D axis and the horizontal and vertical alignment? I think that's something that also has been mentioned before. That's a part of an education topic. And then again, if community, there hasn't been a reaction. So I really admire that person up here, that he or she has has not decided to work with another with other standards, has not decided to work with other software, and still after two years after completing the master thesis and after working with OpenBin, still wants to bring up the topic again. And I think, to be honest, it is our responsibility as a railway industry, especially when it comes to IFC 403, to have an overview of what our users know, so that we know what to develop in the future when we work with IFC. So now, having said that, I would like to change slides to Francia's computer. Sure.
Are you thinking that it's needed some sort of user group community that are similar to what you have for most big software companies, or some sort of, I mean, it doesn't really exist, what I understand, within buildingSMART. So is that something in that direction you are thinking of?
Can I give back, or is it a comment on this? Okay, I'm not sure yet. I don't know if a user group community works, if there is an open community that works. To be honest with you, I worked with a standardization organization in Switzerland, and we tried to ramp up a community working on standards, and we had the same issues, and we tried that for years, and it didn't really, it didn't. So that's something that we I think we have to discuss on how to deal with that.
Well, speaking of communities, thank you for showing the previous slide. As a previous member of the technical team involved in IFC Rail, I missed that time, because you had the 3 levels. You have the stakeholders, the domain leaders, the technical team, and then the implementers. And that worked well, but that was part of a project, and that ended. So no one, if you roll back 2 or 3 years, you had some people dedicated to reply to those answers. They're gone because they're not part of the project anymore. So we need to find a permanent or more resilient structure. A lot of individuals are ready to pour in some of their own hours to reply those, because they are dedicated to the case. But the project is over, so they can't.
Yeah.
So there might be an open door for the user community, but also for the experts.
Yeah. Thank you for that comment. And it's completely understandable why they're not there. And I didn't want to finger point on anybody. It's just that,
well,
as
ask
BSI,
them and they will point fingers.
We are an organization that develops standards, then publishes it, and then forgets about it, and goes to the next standard. And we have to maintain, somehow we have to maintain the standards if they're published. And I'm not sure if that community approach is something that really works, to be honest, but that's up for discussion, and maybe we'll have something in the end of this afternoon. So, Franz Josef, are you satisfied? Is everything working? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So maybe I would like to invite you to group together in groups of 3 or 4 or something, or as you please. If you want to do it by yourself, do it by yourself. If you don't want to do it, just enjoy the silence in the room, and think about what a typical user journey could be. If you have, for example, if you have an input, let's say you have a theme about knowing how IFC alignment works. If you really are a user of our standards, how do you recognize that you have an issue? Because maybe you don't, and maybe you don't have an issue, but your client, and I say that as a client, has an issue, and just pulls it over to you. How do you report these issues? How are these issues processed? How do you get your feedback, and what is the output of it? Just to get us some examples as a railway domain, so we can work on that further. Do you think 10 minutes is enough for this? I guess so. So we'll start, and I'm curious on your feedback in 10 minutes. you have pen and paper. Unfortunately, we don't have any flip charts. We have nothing, but we have a lot of pens and a lot of paper in the room. And if you need something to write on, or if you want to do it digitally, just tell me. I want we in this room have a common understanding of what the user perspective of open BIM standards are, that we try to switch the perspective to what could be an issue that someone is confronted with when working with IFC 4.3. And I would like to invite you to go through that and just think about what could be a possible input. For example, a technical issue, a programmatical issue, a software issue, whatever. I don't find the right classes. I don't know in which schema to put my entities. How do I recognize that I have an issue? Because maybe I do not recognize it before, for example, I go through a certification of my client's requirements. Recognize it because my software won't work anymore. How do I report that? What are the channels that I use? For example, most of the people probably will Google it. This is just what probably everybody does, or just phone a friend, talk to your software vendor, talk to your client, talk to other planners in the project. How is the issue that you brought up processed? What is the feedback that you usually get? And what could be a possible output of it?
So Franz Joseph is putting an example together on the board just to get you started. See the sort of thing that we're looking for.
For the online attendees, screenshot the slides.
Yeah, online could be tricky, but if you want to post in the comments box, please do.
Good. We're still in discussions. Is there a group of you that wants to step forward with an example that we can just have a wrap up in the session here? Very well. From the client? Not necessarily. That means it could be from a client, right?
We can frame it to be, right? So an input would be that there's a mistake in the IFC schema. Yeah, take your time. It's a mistake, error in IFC schema. You know, it is the recognize step as well, right? I would just copy that one over to recognize. So
let's just collect.
Correct. Yeah.
Let's on input.
How did you find that there is an error in the schema? That's recognized. Did you implement something, or did you just, or you may just read it, but another guy who what?
So perhaps the other way around, right? We were trying to define our requirements, and we're searching for an appropriate IFC entity, and we recognized that there was an error, right? Perhaps that's the way the story goes, and then we reported that on the buildingSMART International GitHub, where that holds the whole schema. So that's yeah, that happened, and then we waited for the process. Hoped to get some feedback from buildingSMART International Technical Services, or from whoever is in that world that also can understand such issues. That's also a huge buy-in on that. So process is hope. Nice summary of my sentences. Feedback was we're still waiting, and there's no output yet.
Okay, thank you. Is there a result from one of your groups that want to be shared? Not yet. Okay, still working on it.
Yeah, I'm not sure that how to describe the issue, but if kind of we are trying to buy a new software, so we want to make sure that the software will produce the IFC 4.3 as it said in the schema. But then if we want to find the certification that's really the case for the software, there isn't now any kind of certification process in place in a way that we can be sure that the device, the IFC 4.3 as it was, or as it's supposed to.
Thank you. Was that had not okay? Perfect.
We were actually thinking the same, but a little bit differently. I'm a client, and my service provider is using some software, and he's saying yes, it's IFC it's IFC United, but I'm not sure. How do I make it sure?
Okay. As well.
Yes, thank you. Actually, we have two issues at the SNCF Réseau. From France, Edouard Chabannet from France. They are linked with the two inputs already put here. Donc the first one have today a common data environment fully applying IFC 4.3. We can use, we have a common data environment, we can exchange files, but we cannot visualize the fully 3D model in IFC 4.3. So that it's a problem for the user. The user can view something, but it's degraded. It's not a complete view of the 3D model. And the second one, which is linked with the error in the IFC schema, I already evoked it. It's some objects that are not already defined or modelizing in the IFC 4.3. For example, for signaling, we have many objects for ERTMS. We have the signaling objects near the tracks that are they have geometrical properties, but we have some virtual objects like ERTMS canton, virtual sector for the circulation, and also the globalization. So we have only the geometrical properties for the objects, physical objects, but for the virtual objects, we don't have anything. So for us, it's very difficult to implement fully a modelization from the point of view of signaling manager, because we need two vision. One vision is the geometrical vision, and the other one is the operational. It's linked with the RayML and the Ray topo model, for example.
Okay, thank you. I think a lot of it will be done afterwards. We'll listen to we'll listen to the registration. Yeah, I think so. Franz Josef, if you talk for the online attendees, please use a microphone. Otherwise, yeah. Okay. Then it's your turn.
Okay, so we came from China, and me myself is in the Design Institute, and these two are more like academic. So we find a problem is the some kind of like the previous problem. We find cities and missing attributes. So we found that when doing the station projects, especially in the delivery phase. So me myself in the Design Institute, when I hand over the model to the constructors, some of the properties or the entities they cannot see it. So different platforms, they want to like add some incredible things using our model, but they cannot do that because they don't know the information we input. So therefore, for this kind of customized project, we came to BSI and we started a project within the railway domain. Process. Okay, we just had the kickoff session and we are waiting for the next step, and we hope to amend the missing things by doing a data dictionary. Hopefully that can work to solve the problem, and output. Still waiting for that. The project has not finished, so hopefully the output is the BSDD, the dictionary.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's a good example of having an output ready already with the solution in mind. That's good. Thank you. Is there any example that has come in online, John? No, we haven't got. Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you for gathering all these to hand in your notes afterwards. We'd be very grateful if you have more that you want to have written down afterwards in the documentation. So far, Franz Josef, could you maybe switch to the next slide at the moment? It's automatically saved. Okay, just as an overview, I think what is one of the outcomes of the examples that you have said is, okay, we have an issue and we do not really know who to contact to. So what does BSI do? What does our software vendor do? Or what does a software provider do? What does the chapter do? Because we all, or most of us, are in a national chapter. What does an appointing party or a stakeholder do that you might work with? What does the user itself do? What is my role if I have an issue? Maybe it's my problem. But I think what we should really think about in the next sequence is, what is the role of a domain, or what does the domain do? And Franz Josef, if you go to the next slide, please. I have I received an email, as most of you, on the 29th of August. And under this model, buildingSMART international domains have two clear roles. So it's answered already: to help their sector successfully implement OpenBIM using existing standards and services. And especially the second point is important: to capture industry requirements for future improvements to these standards and services. So I think it is crucial to our role as a domain, when we talk about the railway domain, that we know for our future developments, and for what we want to do in the future, and for what we want to know, that we are in the loop and that we know what the industry requirements are, and do not just sometimes, and that's from my perspective, guess what could be future industry requirements. And having said that, I'm handing over to Franz Josef.
Okay, thank you all for this interactive session. I guess we should really use this summits and especially the sessions, but also afterwards and before and lunch and dinner to just speak about this, because what comes now is kind of a proposal. It's not fixed, and it's not the solution, and it's also, there will also be if there is time enough, there will also be a interactive session afterwards, or we can do your feedback also during the presentation. Stefan, I guess, can type it in a note, or so that we can then in the room steering committee work this through and so on, and keep this thing cooking somehow. Okay, yeah, a possible improvement. I think some of you already had this idea at the very first moment, and this is just a picture of the idea everybody may have, because, okay, there must be a single point to put the questions there, and you may not know if this is a section, or is it domain-specific question. This is something you might not know. You should not have to know. Okay, if it's technical, I have to go to GitHub, and then if it's, I don't know, whatever question regarding the domain, I go to my colleague which is in the domain, or I bring it up in the chapter or at the summit. So you shouldn't care about this. It should be one point where you can put your issues, your questions, improvements, whatever. And then we would suggest to classify it, to say, okay, yeah, this is a technical, this is something Stefan Jaut, which is should have a look on, or this is something the technical team from PSI we should ask, Evando or Chi or whatever, just to classify the thing and then keep on track, then distribute those feedback or those improvements or those questions to the right person or to the right organization. And then we should try to keep on track. Is somebody working on it, or does the person or the group say, okay, I'm not responsible to have to move one step back? And this is something we proposed, and we will just walk through it. And there are some slides with very few words on it, please, where we can also collect your suggestions, and then we will work on this in the infrastructure room steering committee for sure. Okay, this is something we already talked about. So where do you go when you have a certain question and you are not in this BSI or in this buildingSMART community, maybe in a chapter, but yeah, okay, you're just a user, or you we are just a client, and or just a user of the model. We are no modelers, and we already collected a lot, I guess. So Google was mentioned already. GitHub also is used for those who do very technical things or implementing something. BSI forum, summits, or even colleagues. Who are you going to? And this is something where we suggest, Stefan, this is to have one single place to put your feedback. Or should we? Or may I ask you, what do you think? Where? One slide back here. What should we say? Okay, to all our partners and stakeholders. Okay, if you have a problem, please put it in the forum. Or do you think, should we bring up a new web service? Or please.
Thank you. It depends. You can have one place to collect feedback, a Microsoft form, but you can also have a WhatsApp group. You can make those QR codes which you can scan and then join the group to have a more interactive discussion. In the Netherlands, we have multiple WhatsApp groups based on domains where we actually ask questions to each other in the same country, or at least in the same language. But that also gives the ability to ask related questions to the same subject, and it helps to put some more activity inside the community, because you're not only placing feedback, but you can also ask questions related to topics or subjects, or in this case with real, and it activates the network more.
Okay, thank you. So it would be a suggestion to collect the feedback in WhatsApp in an interactive tool, let's call it so, and language specific. So you would say there's one forum for Dutch people and one forum for. Okay. Okay. Yeah. We take all our feedback. So if there's another, and what are the other thinking? Where we should come up with a suggestion, maybe to PSI, or we organize it for ourselves. Where can our stakeholders put their questions and their findings, like Stefan said? Peter. Or Tina.
I think a WhatsApp group can be good for some type of questions, but I also think you need to be able to trace back a little bit more clear for a certain issue. But then it becomes a sort of other communication platform.
You can do both. WhatsApp group is for the community to interact with each other, and the Microsoft Forum could be the place to actually propose a question or feedback. So it's also to so the WhatsApp group is mostly for the group to be more engaged with each other.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that some time ago there was this BSI forum. It was tested, at least I think it was the same idea, that some place where you could have conversation related to specific topics, but it never kind of, something happened. I think that the user didn't find it, but idea was good. But
Thank you.
I mean, from a perspective of a programmer, everything that's on there is good as long as somebody's curating it, right? You could have an email, basically alias somewhere that's support@railwaydomain.com or whatever we call it, with which you make an account on all of the others. That is basically the place where you alias all the guys that should be informed about any issues. But usually with this thing is whatever gets the most resonance, the most answers, that's what people will be using. You could have Discord on it, which is a very, very useful so a very used tool within the gaming community, right? And Discord communities are very active, but of course engineers are not used to that, perhaps the younger ones. But as many as many channels as you open, the better, as long as somebody's behind there that answers. And that's the problem usually, right? That's also one of the reasons I believe why BSI Forum didn't really take off, because we of course all assumed, well, it's going to be somebody else that's going to answer, right? Because you don't have that much time to be answering all the questions. So, but here, if you can ensure that somebody's definitely at least, within, I don't know, 24 hours, 48 hours, at least answering, hey, we heard you. That's that's a complex question. We have to get back to you in 2 months, or for whatever reason. But this is.
Yeah, I was thinking that if we just start somehow that it could be even the kind of the email address to send these different type of feedbacks. The session in BSI summits, at least for the minimum level, that okay, these are the feedback that has been sent to railway domain, and then go through that feedback at least.
Yeah, thank you both. Stefan, I comment on those both. Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, also when it comes to WhatsApp, I guess there's different. It's sometimes it's not possible to may easily, attract the solution or the status of this feedback in WhatsApp. But WhatsApp could be for another type of issues or feedback. And Stefan, yeah, as you to that point, and therefore we think, or we thought, it must be one place, and it's exactly we had exactly the thinking Tina just said. There must be one place, and it will come later on the or at one point in time. It will be later on the slides. Is maybe it's the monthly steering committee meeting, because there's not so much things, not WhatsApp maybe, but not really so much things where we say, okay. Therefore, we need, like our colleagues from China, we need a new project, or we need just to nerve the technical guys that they just look at it, and then so on. And such. That's just once a month. We say, okay, yeah, is there an update? Yes or no, and why not? Okay, should we? Okay, Lisa.
I'm new in this material and I have the problem to find. Well, okay, I have a colleague. I can always ask him. But I think LinkedIn user group or forum or Reddit subreddit. So you can ask question and somebody else can then told you when you must go to this iForum or whatever else.
Okay, thank you. So, any other feedback?
Because in China there's like the WhatsApp and the Discord maybe it's not work in China, so yeah, so we need to find some that's okay, so we need to find some, even GitHub maybe it's not work sometimes, so we need to find some the way to make that we can see the feedback and we can communicate with the others. So for now, at least I know that the box is work.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe the mirror, and I think the summit and the email are also the good way, but maybe it's a little complicated for both of us to communicate the feedback. But I think the box mirror maybe is better. It's better than even it's better than the WhatsApp or the Discord. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so maybe just had a look at my watch and say maybe we should go to the next slide. We as I said, we just collect today, and we will definitely don't have the solution. Even if John said we should have one, and or we may have one. No, we will take this with us and discuss this in our room, definitely in the steering committee. Okay, and then let's say we have this one or two channels for different types, and where everybody or every party or every participant or user can put easily the feedback, maybe just this email address which lands in an email box. Then we suggest, okay, the proposal is that we do this actual classification together, so that we in this monthly steering committee meetings we just go through those feedbacks because I guess, okay, there are 20 people or so experts of the domain, but also because of our history, because we developed so much in the schema that at least some kind of technical knowledge is also always there, I would say. And then we go through it and say, okay, what type of feedback is it? Is it technical? Meaning, okay, there is an error in the schema, or is there are there some software issues, or is it the structure that I cannot build? I cannot find these structures in the schema like it was the case from CRPIM. Or it's just a wrong application of this set of standards we have here in buildingSMART. What do you think? Maybe is this a good proposal, or do you think it's too slow if you have to wait 1 month? So input and feedback welcome. So.
I personally feel it might be a little bit too slow. If it's well, I compared with some questions which are open there for 2 years. This is much faster, of course. Yeah, but sometimes for a lot of technical issues that you find this implementation issue or something our model cannot be visualized, they just want a solution as soon as possible. And I would still suggest there will be somebody that can already do this kind of classification, and also if there's some group who can, some people can be already classified and can solve this problem,
they can still do it. But in a steering committee meeting, can go through the open issues
The rest, okay.
and to find to classify or find the right people to answer. Yeah.
Okay, I understand. So you propose that the things, the feedbacks or issues or questions which are easy to classify, there can be a group of people who do this without the steering committee. Well, a good proposal. It's just what we when we developed or we worked on these slides and on discussed with Stefan the topic, then it's Stefan said to me, there was one point in time I said, be careful, the room is not a company, so there is no, you cannot have one direct this and say, yeah, you have to look here every day in this forum. So it's you want to say something, Stefan?
Yeah, I think there are two principles. One thing is we are an association. We are not a company. We have to understand that. And the other one is that the classification, all the hard work that goes in here, that that is just my personal view. But I will I'm happy to say that out loud. This cannot be completely community driven. Because if it's community driven and we have such a large community, nobody's responsible.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I somehow would like to see that maybe it should go to the BSI management, that if there is some kind of feedback channel, then someone needs to take the responsibility of classifying those, and then there could be some domain specific questions. They could be then come to the domain steering committee, that this is something that has been asked, but the general feedback, someone needs to take the responsibility.
Thank you, Tina. Sure, we can bring this up in the next steering committee. In our steering committees, Richard Kelly is almost every time he's present, and we can also discuss it. What's the feeling, or how BSI is looking at this topic?
I need to add on behalf of Infradomain that we are, of course, behind this proposal, supporting it, even though it might come through the railway domain.
Definitely, I believe there's a lot of common grounds there. That the problem is not rail object specific, but more perhaps on a process basis or a generic one. But I agree here with Stefan. The classification or the assignment of things being community driven, that only works with a few open source software solutions, and also there it doesn't work. So it's really either you get a benevolent dictator, as for example Python has it, that is basically the guy that mentions, that filters through all the issues that comes regarding Python, or you just have a dead community in that regard. So I agree here. The experience shows also from the software development field that community-driven stuff, not necessarily the best solution.
Thank you both. Thank you, Dina, for supporting us. Maybe, we will definitely talk with him.
So, sorry to interrupt all the time, but maybe we could have the joint steering committee meeting together and give this maybe these ideas forward.
Yeah, good idea. Good suggestion. We will. That could be organized, I guess. Just talking to Eivind. Okay. Well, that was for the classification, and then we say, okay, as when you remember this circle, when it's classified, there must be somebody who takes care of it then afterwards, because just the classification doesn't solve those problem or those feedback. or does not work on the feedback. So, yeah, and we see here 5 different ways or different places where we can put this or route this feedback. And so I guess this is something G meant before. If there is a workaround, it's because it is with China Rail, it takes time, even if it's a BSDD. We are talking about this topic to, I don't know, almost 1 year or more than 1 year. Yeah, and then okay, the guy who is sitting there or the girl who is drawing or should use this standard needs some kind of a solution now. And this is something what this second point on the slide say. Okay, is there a short-term workaround, and who takes care of it? And then is it again okay? Now when we say it's not really or not everything is can be solved within a domain, then there must be somebody who is following and tracking those solutions and say, okay, please answer those questions, because or are you the right person or the right group to answer this question? So we see it like this. It's just, I guess that the technical things should, this technical feedback or questions should go to the BSI technical team, because they should have the most knowledge of the technical things of the standard, the schema. And then it's a bit blurry. Yeah? It's not like you can read it on the slide. It's a structure. Must not be the domain experts who can answer this, but what we also want to say with this slide is there always must be some group or person who takes care of it. And as we are in the domain steering committee, at least, we are also sometimes not those deep domain knowledge. At least for me, I can say I know a bit of signaling and a bit of track, but when it goes really deep into railway parts and so on, I also have to ask some experts. And again, I guess we just move forward with this kind of. We don't have this other interactive part. We just move forward like this. So, if are there any suggestions what you would add, or what you say? Okay, this is complete nonsense. What those guys from the Alps here say. So, again, asking the community.
Just observation from me as part of the BSI management office. I'll put that hat on. Yeah, it's a good thing to do this, I think, because there are many channels for many different questions, not all of which are satisfactory, as you've been discussing. If you take software, I'm not sure BSI technical team would say they answer software queries. I think if you're running software and something isn't working, or it goes wrong, or you don't understand it, actually it's the software vendor, would be my take. If you mean vendor software, if that's what you mean by software.
Yeah, it's when we remember the issue Tarmo and I think Tina also had before to say, okay, the software vendor says, okay, I have a nice IFC 4.3 in my export. I don't know if he's the best to ask if for such questions. Maybe he would say, yes, I do have, as it states on my as it is stated on my website. So I don't know, but good, John. Maybe BSI technical team is not the right place. Yeah,
I think that is, sorry, if I just to add one thing, I think that is a very interesting case there, because we had in our organization, we had an issue BCF at that point, not with ISC 4.3. We went to the software vendor. Software vendor said it is a standards problem, and the standard said it is a software problem. And who pays the hours of the user? That goes from it's in German it's from Pontius to Pilatus. It's from one point to the other. So that topics are marking it.
Yeah, and maybe to add here again the certification. So maybe if it's challenge or some problem with the software, then if there is the certification process in place, then maybe it's this. Is it then the BSI, well, technical team, are they responsible for certification? But maybe if it's / certification there, then I think that it would. John, how do you feel then that?
Yeah, no, I think software certification is definitely a buildingSMART responsibility, and it always has been. And you know, a new software certification process specifically for 4.3 is still in development, and I know that's been some time coming and still isn't here, but nevertheless, it's going to be produced by BSI. So I think software certification, you could say, yep, BSI technical team, but you know, Revit's not working, or any other form, anybody else's software, not to pick on that particular company, is not working or not doing what I expected, or it doesn't seem to have these 4.3 entities in it that, you know, should be in it, or they're not coming out the way I expected, or I'm getting errors when I run it through the validation service, so it's not a fully valid IFC file. The first port of call for that, I think, has to be with the software company. You know, to find out why so it could be user error, couldn't it? Of course, or it could just be that the software has not been implemented as fully or correctly as it should have been.
Yeah, thank you. And I was thinking of course, the software vendors are member of BSI community, so some of this feedback could come through the software vendors as well. So then
yeah, I mean, I mean, their forum today is the implementers forum, isn't it? That's where most of the vendors are meeting on a regular basis, quarterly, I think, to discuss how they're updating and should update their software and overcome certain issues, I think.
So we were on the implementers forum, but they've transitioned to GitHub only. So hey, so yeah, GitHub. Go to GitHub for software challenges, maybe, because right now there's not too much interaction on GitHub. After the implementers forum calls ended on the monthly and then quarterly basis, after 4.3 was approved,
yeah,
interaction had dropped almost to non-existent. And so maybe if you have software problems, it could be user error, it could be software, it could be something else. Put it on the GitHub. Maybe we'll find out more. And then it'll put more people on the implementers forum.
Okay, thank you.
Just a word of caution about the implementers forum. It's used to handle past issues or recorded issues, and nowadays it's rather focusing on future issues like IFC5. So it's quite different. It's not a forum really, it's a workshop something, but it's not related to issues raised by users as we discussed right now.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Okay, and then what I want to bring back on this slide also, as you can see on the first at the first line, which is that there is this 4 business need themes, which where the new process BSI is working on is comes in again and say, okay, is there some short-term workaround, or yeah, who can you solve it, or is it something we have to put in kind of a backlog? I call it backlog. Who is familiar with the software terms? Just a bag where you put all the requirements in, and then okay, when it comes to a strategic project, and okay, we can bring in new requirements especially for changing the schema, then we have documented it there. So there comes this process in again. So. Okay, Stefan, I guess regarding the time. Okay, and then we just go through it. It's okay. When you remember the circle, this process picture, then we also have to track. Is GitHub is a good? Maybe it's GitHub to put the place where to put those things. Okay, could be. But we should really, as a community, as the problem Stefan brought up at the beginning, really try to push the people to deliver the answers then, or even take care about if the answer is not coming in the right time. So. Okay, this is something. Okay, danke, Stefan. Thank you, Stefan. Where I shield to Tina again, because it's not a domain thing anymore. So, okay, maybe it's not the domain steering committee meeting, but maybe it's a PSI thing to do. Okay. Next, please, I guess. Okay. Yeah, and then of course response to the feedback. I think this is clear. If it's possible, suggest a short-term workaround, and and try to keep the user or the stakeholder informed when it's when we put it in the backlog for a new version, which is then developed as strategic project. When can he expect that this schema is changed or so, or the error is corrected in the schema? So this is something I think it's clear. Then is there another slide? Ah, yeah. So
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you, Franz Josef, for going through that. We are running out of time, and we thought we'll be finished in 30 minutes. So it's good that we had all these discussions. We'll just go through one thing before I try to finish this up. I think key messages from the workshop that we had over the last 80 minutes now is that we have good open BIM standards. I think that's something that we really have to point out. We have good open BIM standards with industry-wide consensus. And that's a good starting point. We don't have to start from zero, but we are somewhere and we can still develop further. That we have a draft. We had a draft in mind. Maybe I could show you the draft that we've done from the process. If you could just, sorry, is this touch? No, okay. That one. We met in Innsbruck with a draft. You can go back to the other slide. Not really pretty, but with your collaboration, I think this is really something that we can evolve in the future. We have to be consistent, especially in the railway domain, and I want to really emphasize that again. What we as stakeholders in the railway domain spend is taxpayers' money. So we have to be consistent with what we are doing, and we have to be accountable for what we're doing towards the public and towards our peers. And in the end, maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. There is no end to open BIM standards. We still have more to develop, more to deliver, and more to work on. So I would like to come to an end. What's next? I think we will gather all these inputs, Franz Josef and I, document this, bring this into the Railway Domain Steering Committee, and take further actions from there. I hope we'll see most of you either in the steering committee meetings or latest in the next summit, and or in the dinner tonight. Or in the next session, which will be here, a joint session as well. So many possibilities. Thank you very much for all your feedback. Thank you for the involvement and all your opinions. That was very, very helpful. Have a wonderful afternoon, and see you soon. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Franz Joseph. Great discussion, well led. We'll be back in here in 30 minutes. Refreshments are upstairs, and it is a joint session of infrastructure and railway domains. Please join us.